All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday for our infant feeding requirements training. My name is Natalie Ostrander. I am a nutrition consultant and the training coordinator. The first thing we're going to talk about today is infant feeding forms, meal patterns, and individualized production records. One of the most important things to know when you're preparing to feed infants in the CACFP is that if your center provides care to infants, you have to include them in the food program. Even though it is additional record keeping requirements, it is required that if there's infants in your care, they have to be able to participate. They can't just just be too complicated, and you don't want to do that. It's part of the non-discrimination portion of CACFP. And the following is required for all infants in care. So following the infant meal pattern based on the age of the infant feeding forms, and infant production records. And we're going to go into lots of details on what all of these forms look like. And throughout the training, we're also going to be dropping links to these forms and other resources in the chat box. I will also be sending all of those out in an email at the end of the training, probably tomorrow, so that you guys have all of those to hold on to. All right, so this is the infant feeding form. So this helps document the caregiver's feeding preferences and is required for all infants enrolled in care. The top portion of the form allows the parent or guardian to list the first part is for the center to fill out. So this is where the center would list the milk-based iron fortified infant formula that is provided. It is also recommended to have a soy-based formula. It's not required, but if you have one that you offer, you may document it here. And then the families may fill out the infant's full name and date of birth, their feeding preferences, and they can check any boxes that apply. So they may be fully breastfed, partially breastfed, or fully formula fed. And the parents may provide the breast milk, the formula, or a combination. Meals cannot be claimed if a parent provides more than one component, and that includes if they're providing breast milk or formula. And again, we'll go into more details. And if you have any questions, you can just drop them in the chat box. I have some of my other nutrition consultants monitoring that to help you out. Okay, so now we're going to dig into the infant meal patterns. These are based on USDA's guidelines for the different age groups of infants. The minimum portion sizes and components contribute to 2/3 of what the infants need for a whole day. And that's just based on the average number of hours in care. So it's really important when you're feeding the babies to remember that what you have does have a really big impact. They're getting lots of their daily nutrition from you all. So there are two infant meal patterns based on age. So the first is birth through 5 months, and then 6 months through 11 months, or until the infant reaches their first birthday. And then there are two meal types for infants: breakfast, lunch, and supper, or snack. So for infants birth through 5 months, it's a very simple meal pattern. So their breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack is the same across the board. They're required to have iron fortified infant formula, breast milk, or portions of both. All meals and snacks need to provide 4 to 6 fluid ounces of either of these components. A serving below the minimum 4 to 6 ounces is allowable for breast milk if there is additional breast milk or formula that is available to be fed to the infant if the infant is still hungry. If the infant is fully formula fed, they need to be meeting these minimum portion sizes. For infants 6 through 11 months or until their first birthday, breakfast, lunch, and supper are the same meal pattern. So all meals and snacks for infants require 3 components once they're 6 months of age. The first component at breakfast, lunch, or supper is 6 to 8 fluid ounces of iron fortified infant formula, breast milk, or portions of both. Again, the breast milk, smaller portion sizes are allowed in this meal pattern as well. And then for breakfast, lunch, and supper is where the grains or meat alternates can be served. So they may either have 0 to a ½ ounce equivalent of iron fortified infant cereal, 0 to 4 tablespoons of meat, fish, poultry, whole eggs, cooked beans or peas. They may have 2 ounces of cheese or 4 ounces of cottage cheese or yogurt. And finally, the third component is a fruit, vegetable, or combination of both. Snack also requires 3 components to be served. So this is often an error that we see with infants because older kiddos get 2 components for their snacks. But for infants, it has to include their breast milk or infant formula. So they get 2 food components, but they also have to get that formula or breast milk. So for all meals and snacks for all infants, there's 3 components needed after the age of 6 months. So for snacks, it's the same portion size, 6 to 8. Oh, that's wrong. I think it's 2 to 4 fluid ounces of formula, breast milk, or portions of both for snack. And then in snack is where the grains can be served. So they could have bread, crackers, iron fortified infant cereal, or ready to eat breakfast cereal, such as Cheerios. And fruit, vegetable, or combination of both. Note, snacks is the only time that it's creditable to serve a ready-to-eat cereal for infants. So when you're documenting the infant meals, the top section of the production records is the same regardless of age of the infant. The infant's full name, first and last, needs to be written at the top. It needs to be indicated if the infant receives breast milk, formula, or portions of both. It's important to list the specific type of formula so that, when we come for a review, we can make sure that the formula that you're serving is creditable. And later on in this presentation, we will talk about the formulas that are and are not creditable. The age of the infant is required to be listed. This helps determine developmental readiness. It's also important to have the date of birth because that helps anyone who's caring for the infants to know when they need to be transitioning between the meal patterns, either from the 0 to 5 month up to the 6 to 11, or when they have that first birthday and they're able to follow the child meal pattern. And then it's also an opportunity for you to document if the parent provides the formula or any of the food. So again, another reminder that you can only claim meals if the families provide one component. Okay, so this is the meal pattern for 0 to 5 months. So again, 4 to 6 ounces of breast milk, iron fortified infant formula, or portions of both for breakfast, lunch, and snack. And this is what the 0 to 5 month production record looks like. One production record, so 1 page for infants 0 through 5 months, documents 1 month of meals. Please do not combine more than 1 month per page. So if the middle of the month falls, or the change of a month falls in the middle of the week, when you have the new month, just start on a whole new page. It is required to have the dates written for each week. And you will see here how it breaks out breakfast, lunch, and snack. And then it has all the days of the week going left to right. And then there is a area at the bottom for the teacher or whoever is providing the meals to the infant to write their name and to put the date on it for when this is completed. So again, this whole page is 1 month for infants 0 to 5 months. So this is an example of a completed 0 to 5 month production record. So you'll see at the top that all of the information is filled in. That's really important. They have dates for each week. There is documentation for all meals and snacks that the center is going to claim, including the quantity. So it's very important so that we can ensure that the infants are getting the portion sizes that they need, that the portion sizes are written in there. And then there's also clear documentation of when the infant was not in attendance so that we know to verify that those meals were not claimed. And again, the bottom of this production record is signed and dated by the care provider. I see lots of questions coming in the chat, which is great. Please keep those coming and the other consultants will help you out. So again, this is the meal pattern for 6 through 11 months. It's the same one we discussed earlier. So once infants turn 6 months, it's important to continue offering breast milk and iron fortified infant formula. It's still required at all meals and snacks up until their first birthday, but then they get the opportunity to start gradually introducing some solid foods, which is always a really exciting time. So this is a production record for a 6 to 11 month old. One page of this production record is 1 week of meals for infants. Sometimes I see some old production records floating around. If you have the one that has the colored lines on it like this, where breakfast is yellow, lunch and supper is blue, and snack is green, that's our most up-to-date one. So if you don't have it, it'll get dropped in the chat box, and you can go ahead and download that and print it for your classrooms. Again, please do not combine different months on the same production record. Once you hit the last day of the month, just start on a new piece of paper for the next day. Again, dates are required, and you will see how it's breakfast, lunch, and supper, top to bottom, and then Monday through Friday, left to right. So when you're documenting on the infant production records, particularly for 6 to 11 month olds, the specific foods should be listed. For example, don't just write fruit where it has the fruit, vegetable, or combination of both on the production record. We want to know what fruit you're serving. List the amount of the food that is offered, not what the infant actually consumed, because for anyone who's ever fed an infant, none of it might actually make it in their mouth and down into their stomach, but that's okay. That's how they learn. So even if little Johnny smears all of his applesauce in his hair and up his nose, you can still claim that meal, document what you offered and provided to little Johnny, not actually what he consumed. If the infant is breastfed on site, you do not need to write a quantity of what the baby consumed because there's not really a way to know that unless you're doing a weighted feeding. So you would just document on the production record. You could either write BF for breastfed, you could write the word nurse, or any other type of documentation that works for your center. But you are able to claim those meals for reimbursement, which is really exciting. When an infant, including if an infant is younger than 6 months and they are developmentally ready to eat solid foods, programs are required to offer these foods. So again, it's a great time to work with the families to help figure out what their preferences are on feeding their babies. So here is some, well, let me move my little thing here. There we go. So here is some completed infant production records. So the minimum portion sizes for infants begins at 0 because USDA recognizes that not all infants are developmentally ready to eat solid foods at exactly a specific age. Not every baby can hold their head up and is safe to eat table foods the day that they turn 6 months old. So that's why the range starts with 0. This does not mean that serving the food is optional. Documentation of the portion size is required in order for the meal to be eligible for reimbursement. So once an infant is developmentally ready and they are regularly consuming all of the components, the nutrition consultant wants to make sure that all of those components are being offered at all meals and snacks. So here's some examples of some correctly completed production records and one that does not have enough information. So on the Monday, this center wrote 6 ounces of iron fortified infant formula, 2 ounces of yogurt, and 1 tablespoon of peaches. So we see the specific food and the quantity for all 3 of those required components. If we look at Tuesday, however, we only have 6 ounces written. We don't know whether they were fed breast milk or formula. The meat alternate section is blank. And then the fruit is it just has fruit listed. We don't know what they had. We don't know how much. So this meal on Tuesday would not be eligible for reimbursement. There's not enough documentation for this meal. Since the little boxes on the production records are kind of small, we do on the back of the 6 to 11-month-old production record, we do have a infant food abbreviation chart that you may use, or you can kind of adapt your own. Again, we just want to really see that you're trying to squeeze all the information in there. We know that it's hard, but you can use abbreviations whenever you need to. Okay, so this is a completed production record for a 6 to 11-month-old. So again, you will see at the top, all the information is complete. The name, age, date of birth, formula, all that information is up there. And then you will see that for each meal and snack, there is a component listed. Again, there's clear documentation of when the infant was not in attendance, and it was also signed and dated by the care provider at the bottom. Okay, so now we're going to transition to talking about serving breast milk and infant formula. So, breast milk and iron fortified infant formula is required at all meals and snacks for all infants until their first birthday. You may serve a combination of both, and you must serve the minimum portion size required. And again, babies who receive breast milk may be served smaller portions if that's the family's preference and request, and if there's additional breast milk or formula for the infant to be fed. All infant formulas must be iron fortified. And then down here in this box are different milk varieties that are not creditable and allowable to be served to infants, including almond milk, cow's milk, dry milk, evaporated milk, goat milk, hemp milk, non-dairy creamer, soy milk, condensed milk, or any toddler or weaning formulas are not allowable. So CACFP tries to support breastfeeding mothers, which is why we allow for infants who are breastfed on site for those meals to still be claimed. We recommend letting all the mothers know that you support their efforts and have a space welcoming for them. It's recommended to have a quiet, private space that is comfortable and clean. And again, you are allowed to claim these meals or snacks for reimbursement. If a mother breastfeeds on site, it may be claimed. If the mother chooses to leave the premises and return the infant after breastfeeding, those meals or snacks would not be allowable for reimbursement. Again, you may just write the word breastfed. You could write BF or nursed. And again, you do not need to list the quantity. So formula feeding requirements. Iron fortified infant formula is required for babies who are not breastfed or are partially breastfed. Centers providing care to infants must provide at least one option for an iron fortified infant formula that is regulated by the FDA. So you have to have at least one option for the parents to accept for you to feed their baby. To determine if an iron fortified infant formula is creditable, you can look for a statement on the package that says infant formula with iron. You can also look at the nutrition facts label to make sure that it has enough iron. So as long as it has 1 milligram of iron per 100 calories, the iron fortified formula is creditable. Sorry, I just got distracted by the chat box saying the links aren't working. Yes, we will definitely send those out at the end. So some other examples of creditable infant formulas that do not need additional documentation include formulas that are soy-based, low lactose, and lactose-free. As long as they're iron fortified, you can serve these without any additional medical statement. So here's some examples. Soy, low lactose, or lactose-free. There are some occasions that a infant has a medical need and needs a specialty formula, and you can get a medical statement in order to claim those for reimbursement. Institutions are required to provide the substitute if it's requested and documented by the infant's provider. And some of these formulas can include FDA exempt formulas, which is a list of formulas that are for babies that have a medical or dietary restriction. Some of these are not iron fortified. Some of them may have low iron, and they're only creditable if you have the special diet statement on file. And the bottom of this slide is a snip of what that website looks like. And I have some examples here as well. So these, I would say, are some of the most common exempt formulas that we see. So all of these would need a special diet statement. So these first two are premature formulas. So it's the Similac and the Enfamil varieties, the NeoSure and the NeuroPro Enfacare would both require a special diet statement. And then the extensively hydrolyzed protein formulas where the protein is broken down really, really teeny tiny, those also require a special diet statement. The most common ones of those that we see are Nutramigen and Alimentum. So if you're currently serving any of these and you don't have the special diet statement on file, please work on getting that from your families. And if you need help, just let your nutrition consultant know. So this is the special diet statement, and it looks like the links just got dropped in the chat. Hopefully those work. So the information that needs to be on the form in order for us to accept this is, first of all, the medical provider needs to explain how a regular infant formula would affect the infant. It may be just as simple as the infant was born prematurely, so they need a premature formula. That's all that they would have to write. And then the medical provider needs to specify the name or kind of formula that needs to be avoided, and then the specific substitution that is needed. And then finally, it needs to be signed by one of the allowable medical professionals, which includes a licensed physician, either an MD or a DO, an advanced practice nurse with prescriptive authority, a dentist, a physician's assistant, or a registered dietitian. Again, if you ever have any questions about the special diet statement, just let us know. So the special diet statement allows for exceptions to the meal pattern due to medical reasons. It needs to have the name of the formula to avoid and the one to replace it with. And centers are required to provide those if there's a medical statement on file. A center can claim meals for reimbursement in all of the following scenarios. So if the parent accepts the iron fortified infant formula that you provide, if the parent declines that specific formula and they bring their own, as long as it's not one of the exempt ones, you can claim it. If they bring an exempt one, you need that special diet statement. If the parent provides breast milk only, or if they breastfeed on site, if the parent provides breast milk and you supplement with parent-provided iron-fortified infant formula, or if you provide with your own iron-fortified infant formula. So all of these are allowable for reimbursement. So when parents supply more than one food component, you cannot claim those meals. That includes if they're providing breast milk or formula. Some examples include the parent provides the formula and the center provides the chicken and green beans. You would be able to claim that for reimbursement. But if the parent supplies breast milk and peaches and the center only provides the infant cereal, you would not be able to claim that for reimbursement. Okay, so we're gonna do a little activity here. So you guys can either unmute or just answer in the chat box. So on the left side of the screen here, I have a menu for what would be served for the rest of the centers. So for all of the kiddos that are over the age of 1. And so we're going to pretend that we have this menu, but we're serving some of the food options in the infant room. And how are we going to change the menu and how we're going to document those meals? Because the infant meals don't always align with what the menu might be for the older kiddos. So you may have to add or subtract some of the food options, which is where sometimes we see errors on infant production records and we have to disallow those meals. So if we were to say, the menu for the whole center on Monday for breakfast was Kix, cereal, bananas, and milk. How might we document that for the infant? Let me get my chat box open so I can follow along with you guys. Tiffany, that is correct. You cannot serve ready-to-eat cereal at breakfast for infants. So, and you can't serve milk either, right? So you would serve the infant either the iron fortified infant formula or breast milk. And then you could either serve iron fortified infant cereal on the day that the older kids have a ready to eat cereal at breakfast. Or you could, serve cheese, cottage cheese, yogurt. And then the bananas, you could include those for your infants. So for lunch, if the older kids are getting bean and cheese nachos served with corn, pineapple, and milk, how might we properly document that for an infant? Okay, so we always want to include the iron fortified infant formula or breast milk. The bean and cheese could be served to the infants. We would serve that in like the gray area. And then the corn and pineapple could also be served to the infants. So the nice thing is that menu, you wouldn't really have to change too much for the 6 to 11 month olds. It would just be a choking hazard to serve the nacho chips. But all the other components, you can just adapt to the production record. And then for PM snack, we have popcorn and grapes. How might we adjust that to be creditable for an infant? So again, we would make sure that they have their breast milk and iron fortified infant formula. Let's see, Tanya says you could do crackers and peaches. That's a great idea. A ready to eat grain, fabulous. Grapes are a choking hazard, as is popcorn for infants. So you could serve grapes if they were cut up either in half long ways or in quarters. But yeah, crackers is a great option to replace the popcorn for the infants. Great job. Okay, we're gonna do this for one more day. We're gonna look at Tuesday. So we have scrambled eggs, strawberries, and milk. So how are we gonna make sure that we are meeting all of the components for the infants? This day is nice because scrambled eggs are creditable for infants. So you wouldn't have to change that. You would just document their formula or breast milk, add in the scrambled eggs, and you could slice up the strawberries and serve that. So that one doesn't need any changes for the infants. So if we look at lunch, you have spaghetti and meatballs, salad, zucchini, and milk. So what is there anything that we might want to change here? So even though grains are not a required component at lunch, You could still offer the spaghetti to the infants. It's just not one of the required components. So as long as you gave them some of the meatballs or another meat alternate, you could serve that and it would be creditable for the infants. I see some great ideas in the chat box to changing the salad. Yes, peas is a great idea. You could also serve fruit in place of the salad. The zucchini you might be able to serve. So again, this one's a pretty easy one. You don't really have to change much for the infants here, which is great. Just it's important to note that you can't serve just the spaghetti for the lunch to be creditable. You would have to have a meat or meat alternate component in there too. And then for the snack, we have yogurt and granola. So even though yogurt is a great food component to serve infants, it's not one of the required components at snack. It's required at breakfast, lunch, or supper. So we would need to make some changes here. So you could serve the yogurt as an additional component, but you would, want to make sure that you had some type of fruit in there, which would be great. Yeah, the granola is probably too crunchy. So you could do like a ready-to-eat cereal, like Cheerios would be a great idea. And again, making sure that you're getting that fruit or vegetable in there along with the iron fortified infant formula or breast milk. So sometimes there might be, several changes you have to make from the base menu to make it creditable for infants, but not always. So, make sure that you or your chef, whoever's creating your menu, they, kind of keep in mind the differences between the meal patterns. And then you can kind of work together to figure out what are some easy substitutions. All righty. So it is still required to document infant meals on the record of meals served or ROMs. Even though the infants have a production record, you still have to mark it on the ROMs too. You only want to mark when a creditable meal or snack is served. So again, if you have an infant and all their components are coming from home, you would not mark that meal on the ROMs. And it's okay to feed infants on demand. They have a mind of their own. They might not always want to eat at the, regular breakfast, lunch, and snack times that the older kids do, and that's totally fine. You can still claim those meals even if they receive them not in the windows that are on your application. And it is required that all food components and quantities offered are documented on the production records. So ROMs for infants have the same requirements as all other kiddos. It must be completed at the time of meal service based on visual observation. You can only mark a child on the ROMs in the room that they are observed and eating the meal. The income eligibility, so free, reduced, or paid, should not be documented on the ROMs until the claim is being prepared. The ROM should have the first and last name, and it must match the full name that's on the IEF. And it's important to have one of these in each classroom to ensure that you are able to document those meals during the time that the infants are eating. Okay, so we're going to go through another little example here. So we're going to look at these different meals and snacks and determine how we would mark it on the ROM, whether we could claim that meal or not. So for little Mary Lamb, who's 5 months old, her breakfast includes that she was breastfed by mother on site, and then mother provided 1 tablespoon of mashed bananas. So we know that we can claim meals when the baby is breastfed on site, so we can claim that. And then lunch, she was breastfed on site again, so we can claim that. And then for a snack, she was offered a bottle, but she didn't consume any of it. But since she was offered, we can still claim that meal. So for this, we would mark all 3 meals for this infant. So for breakfast, she was breastfed. For lunch, she was breastfed. And for snack, we're going to put that she was offered a 2-ounce bottle of breast milk. So for Charlotte Webb, who is 11 months old, her breakfast is She was offered breast milk and then iron fortified infant formula, or excuse me, cereal, and then peaches that were provided by the center. So this has all of the required components. So we would document that. For lunch, she was breastfed on site, and then also received 4 tablespoons of chicken and 2 tablespoons of corn. And then snack was provided breast milk and was offered Chex and banana provided by the center. So this is how we are going to fill this production record in. Oh, hold on. There we go. So now we have all of the components here. So we have the breast milk for breakfast, the infant cereal, the peaches. She was breastfed, had chicken and then corn, and then the breast milk, the Chex, and the bananas. And so this is what her production record would need to look like, and simultaneously her ROMs, having all of those meals checked off. There we go. It's important that infants that are breastfed to have the parents provide some type of backup supply. It should be clearly labeled with the baby's full name and the date that the milk was pumped. Please do not store or accept any unlabeled bottles. And it should be kept refrigerated or frozen until meal or snack time. So this table is from a resource, the Feeding Infants Handbook, that we'll share out at the end of the training, and has some storage recommendations for fresh breast milk, thawed breast milk, and then leftover from a previous feeding. Okay, so now I am going to pass the torch over to Alicia, and she is going to talk about transitioning infants from formula and breast milk to introducing table foods.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. Will you manage the slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okie doke. So we'll first slowly move into talking about transitioning your infants to solid food. Just to keep in mind that your infants should be fed on demand and should not be restricted to an inflexible feeding schedule. You want to know your infant's hunger cues. You want to listen and watch for those. You'll see that it includes opening their mouth to touch of a nipple or spoon when hungry, or they'll close their mouth and turn their head away from the nipple or the spoon when they are not hungry or no longer hungry or when they're full. They may push food out of the mouth when they are not hungry. So that might be an I'm done, like no more food hunger cue, or not hunger cue, not hungry anymore cue. And you never want to force your infants to finish a bottle or to finish any type of food that you are offering to them. Let them be the judge, let them lead the way. Our little babies are smart. They know themselves better than we think they do. And so let them be in charge of what, when, and how much they want to eat. So transitioning to solid foods, you want to be in constant contact with the infant's parent or guardian. Ideally, you will be checking in with your parents when they drop off the infant and when they pick up the infant. I've seen some child care centers offer like a daily report of what the infant was doing, how they were interacting with other children, if they were happy, if they ate well, how many diapers they soiled. Ideally, you're going to be on top of making sure that you know and that the parents know where the child is and where they're at in readiness for transitioning to solid foods. When you begin to introduce solid foods, you want to watch for allergic reactions. That includes rash, hives, irritability, or vomiting. And you want to report any potential allergic reactions to the parents. You could probably even document it somewhere in the child's file. Advanced textures like pureed, mashed, ground, or diced foods, you want to make sure that these are that they meet the infant's developmental stage. So pureed, moving to mashed, moving to ground, moving to diced as the child progresses in their transitioning to solid foods. You want to avoid foods that are choking hazards until the age of 4. That's kind of old. That's older than I would have thought when my kids were little. And some of the common choking hazards are grapes, nuts, seeds, hot dogs, popcorn, things of that size, of that texture. Foods, I should say. Around 7 to 8 months of age, most infants should be eating solid foods from all food groups. So this is a great way to introduce them to different tastes, textures, smells, vegetables, fruits, meat alternates, grains, and dairy. So we'll kind of tackle each meal component for infants. We'll go through each of them and give you some additional information for each component. So when you're serving meat and meat alternates, this is a list of the creditable meat and meat alternate options for infants. That includes meat and poultry, fish and shellfish, cheese and cottage cheese. Just to point out that cheese food, cheese spread, cheese product are not creditable under the infant meal pattern. Whole eggs are creditable, dry beans and peas, and yogurt as well. But you must know your sugar limits with your yogurt, and keep in mind that homemade yogurt is not creditable, and yogurt products are not creditable. Some of that stuff gets kind of confusing, especially with what's on the market. Okay, so non-creditable meat and meat alternates, that includes nuts, seeds, cheese food, cheese spread, cheese products, and tofu. And we do not recommend serving processed foods or processed meats like hot dogs, meat sticks, chicken nuggets, or fish sticks, etc. to infants. So we'll move on to serving grains. For infants, well, all grains served must be enriched or whole grain, the CACFP. There is not a whole grain rich requirement, like Natalie mentioned earlier, in the infant meal pattern. But if you are going to serve them, you have to make sure that they're enriched in whole grain. Infant cereals must be iron fortified, and ready to eat cereals are allowable at snack only. That includes puffed rice, cereal, whole grain O's, etc. And you want to keep an eye on those sugar limits for those products as well. Companies like to sneak sugar into those products. Okay, so non-creditable grains. Here we see a picture of the soft-baked grain bars. Those are very popular and very delicious, but they are not creditable. They are considered a grain-based dessert, along with cookies, sweet pie crust, donuts, the cereal bars, breakfast bars, granola bars, sweet rolls, all the good stuff, toasted, I don't know what that is there, pastries, cake, brownies, and this is not an all-inclusive list. There are others, and we could probably share some resources with you at a later date if you need them. But just this gives you a good general idea of the non-creditable grains. So non-creditable grains continued. We like to show you pictures and examples. Not enriched with these teethers are very popular. These Soothe and Chew sticks are also very popular. They are not creditable. They are not enriched. And then over on the other side, you'll see the grain-based desserts. There's those breakfast bars again. And then those arrowroot biscuit cookies are also very popular, but they are considered a grain-based dessert. The good news, these are creditable grains. I know the little ones really love these puffs. They're easy to grab. It gives them good fine motor skills. And they also really like these little crunchies, and both of these are considered creditable with the CFP. Okay, so serving fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are required at all meals and snacks once your infant is developmentally ready. You may serve a vegetable by itself or fruit or a combination of both. And this is a great opportunity to expose the infant to a wide range of textures, pureed, mashed, cooked, diced. And just keep in mind that juice is not creditable for infants. We have some new info, some updates to the sugar limits for infants. An infant meal follows the same sugar limit requirements as for yogurt and cereal. Um, Cereal must contain no more than 6 grams of total sugar per dry ounce. And as of October 1st of this year, the cereal must contain no more than 6 grams of added sugars per dry ounce. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. If you have the WIC food list and shopping guide, all of those cereals listed within that guide are creditable with the CFP. So that's a really great resource that we like to share out with our institutions. So we're going to do just a quick little activity. Does this cereal meet the current sugar limit? You want to take a look at the serving size, and then you want to look at the total sugars listed below. And then you go over to this chart and you make your determinations. Yay, we got a green thumbs up. This cereal does meet the sugar limit. So as you can see, it's 30 grams of cereal and it has a total sugars of 5 grams, and the sugar limit for 30 grams of cereal, dry cereal, is 6 grams. So it's right there. It's right at the limit, in my opinion. And it's the same thing with sugar limits for yogurt. So you can serve plain flavored, sweetened, or unsweetened yogurt. But if you're going to serve the sweetened yogurt, you want to keep an eye on the total sugars. So for yogurts, what the allowance for total sugars is 23 grams per 6 ounces. And starting October 1st, yogurt must contain no more than 12 grams of added sugars per 6 ounces. Non-commercial or non-standardized yogurts are not allowable or creditable. Some common examples include the frozen yogurt bars, drinkable yogurt products, homemade yogurt, or yogurt covered fruits and nuts. So this is new and exciting. Soy yogurt is now creditable for infants. Homemade soy yogurts are not creditable, and the same sugar limits apply to soy yogurt as to just the regular dairy yogurt. So does this yogurt meet the current sugar limit? You can see the orange box kind of guides your eye to the serving size, and then the second orange box down below guides your eyes to the total sugar, and then down below that you see the added sugar line as well. You want to keep an eye on both of those, and then you want to check the box over here, the guide. We have an 8-ounce serving, 227 grams of yogurt, and it has 9 grams of total sugar, 0 grams of added sugar. And so, yes, this yogurt meets the sugar limits. It's well below it. Pretty awesome. So it's good to just like memorize the things that are not allowed for infants. Juice, nuts and seeds, cheese, foods, or spreads, honey, and this is never before age 1 due to the risk of botulism, grain-based desserts like those breakfast bars, and artificial sweeteners. And again, this is not an all-inclusive list. So you want to do your own research as well. Look at resources through the CACFP. Okay. Choking hazards for infants. So hard vegetables like carrots, you want to cook them if you want to serve them. It'll be easier for them to eat. You won't have to worry so much about it being a choking hazard. Anything that is round or tube shaped, cherry tomatoes, grapes, hot dogs, anything that can get caught in their little airways. Large cubes of or pieces of cheese. You want to serve these shredded or thinly sliced. Nuts and seeds, including grains made with nuts and seeds. All those little like pieces can just like make, I mean, sometimes I choke on them as an adult. So for the little ones, it's really scary. Dried fruit, popcorn, and peanut butter or other nut butters served in large, thick portions. You want to make sure that you are spreading it on a cracker or a piece of bread. And do not serve chunky nut butters either. Also a choking hazard. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about food allergies. It's important to also be aware of these. 9 major food allergens are shellfish, eggs, fish, milk, peanuts, sesame, soy, treats, and wheat. Tree nuts. Is a type of That's
Oops.
funny.
Thanks for
I
just
was like, I was like,
rolling with it.
know what that is, but they're tree nuts. You want to talk to your parents or guardians before introducing these foods to your kiddos. So commercial infant foods include packaged in a jar, food that is packaged in a jar, a plastic container, a pouch, or other packaging. These are creditable. They're very popular. Those fruit pouches are very popular. Spoon feeding is also an appropriate way to feed. So you can serve packaged food in the pouch with a spoon, the same way you would from a jar or a container. So it is best practice to only purchase commercially prepared infant foods that contain one food component. This is the easiest way to ensure that you're meeting the CACFP meal pattern requirements and the minimum required portion size for these food components. Combination food, infant foods, these include a mixture of 2 or more different food components, such as meat and vegetables or fruits and vegetables. And the fruit and vegetable is actually considered one component for infants. So a jar of apples and carrots is considered just one component. You offer only after the infant has been introduced to each individual ingredient in the combination food. This helps you know the child and whether it has an allergy, you can pinpoint what the food the child is allergic to. Okay, so crediting combination foods. So we have a resource. I think maybe it's being dropped in the chat box. It's great to have this on hand, read through it, because some combination foods may be creditable with the CACFP. Additional documentation may be needed, and so you want to learn more by reading through this resource. And as we said before, it is best practice to serve single food or single component foods. If the commercial baby food only has ingredients from one food component, we do not need to know the amount of each ingredient. It's just a little bit easier for documentation. It's easier to understand the baby's whether or not it has an allergy to certain foods. It just keeps it simplified. With the combination food, it does require some additional documentation. So this food will fulfill the fruit and vegetable component if you see the sweet potato, apple, and the corn mix, which that doesn't even sound good to me, but the baby might love it. Okay, how to credit combination foods. So you want to determine if the amount of each creditable ingredient is listed on the food container as a unit of volume. See, already like my brain got scrambled just reading that. But we can help you out. Your nutrition consultant can help you learn to credit combination foods. So you'll see over here, you see the yes check mark. These have enough information. It contains 4 tablespoons. It gives you a serving size. of sweet potato, 3 teaspoons of turkey, 2 tablespoons of cooked grains. And the same with the pouch. You see actual serving sizes, like actual amounts of what each food component is within the container. And then over on the other side, you'll see that these just don't help us enough. It has ingredient lists, but it just tells us what it contains and not how much. And then this other one with the percentages, I think that's also very difficult to determine how much and how like what the serving size is for each food within this container. Okay, so if the amount of each creditable ingredient is not listed on the food container as a unit of volume, you need to refer to a product formulation statement, and this will be required. We will ask to see this documentation when we are on a review looking at your food labels. Portion sizes for infants. Infants must show that they are developmentally ready and accepting of each food in the combination baby food. You as the center must ensure that the combination baby food is packaged. The package provides the full required amount of the food component. And you want to refer to the infant meal pattern for the minimum required portion sizes for each meal and snack. So you want to make sure you know all that information really well. So just some mealtime safety. Like we said, choking hazard is high when they're little and they're learning how to chew and they don't have teeth and they have small little throats. So you want to ensure that your classroom staff is well trained on mealtime safety. A few tips here are infants under 6 months must be held by a care provider during bottle feedings. Bottle propping is a choking hazard and can lead to tooth decay, so that's not safe. Bottles of formula or breast milk cannot be warmed in the microwave oven. And infants consuming solids must have constant adult supervision. This is necessary for preventing choking and to meet the infant's feeding needs. And then serving infant cereal in a bottle is not allowed. So again, well, I feel like we already didn't we? I think this is a repeat slide. Yeah. You want to just go to the next one? Okay. So here are some resources for you. The infant feeding guide is awesome. It is big. It has a lot of information in it, but it is digital, so you can download it and you can toggle through each section very easily. This is the kitchen cabinet. Do you want to talk about this, Natalie? I don't know. I've never seen this. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, no, this is a little sneak peek for everyone. So we have some new training videos that are going to get released in March. And so this is our infant meal pattern requirement um micro training video. So I'm going to give you guys a little sneak peek and show this to you. So it goes over a lot of the information that we just went over, but just a much shorter brief version. And in March these will be released and you can share them with the rest of your staff. So hopefully I can get this to play. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna need a thumbs up if you guys can hear the video when I hit play. Can you guys hear it
No,
through Zoom?
no.
Okay, let me see here. Hold on.
Hear it? No?
No.
Just muted myself. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And I'm gonna try this one last time. No? Okay. So I'm gonna let it play. We're gonna do it with the closed caption on it, and then I'll send you the video link so you all can watch it. But this way you can kind of at least enjoy the visuals because we're pretty proud of these videos. We worked really hard. So okay, I'm gonna make this bigger. We're just gonna roll with it. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm so sorry you guys didn't get to hear the audio with that. But I'll send it when I send all the other resources. I'll get all the links working, hopefully. Um, but I just we're really excited to release these. I mean, it's 6 minutes and it basically covers the majority of what we've spent the last hour talking about. So hopefully it's gonna end up being really helpful for you all in training your staff too. So that is the hold on a second. Get back to my PowerPoint. Okay. And share. Oops, slideshow. There we go. Okay. All right. Can you guys see the QR codes on the screen again?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. Okay, so that's all the content that we were going to share today. If you have any final questions, feel free to unmute or drop in the chat box and we can talk about them. Otherwise, we're going to drop links for the post-test and evaluation in the chat box. You can also grab them on these QR codes. And then by the end of the week, so by tomorrow afternoon at the latest, I anticipate getting all the links to you all, the recording for today's training, the PowerPoint, the video, all the information. So thank you for joining us. Hope you learned something. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and you can hang on if you have another question. If not, feel free to hop off and enjoy your Friday Eve. Thank you.
Thank
Are
you,
you
Mel.
gonna give us certificate for this training?
Yes. Yep, I will send a certificate once I get the evaluations back. The certificates will go out in the email
Oh,
tomorrow.
thank you.
You're so welcome. All right, everyone, have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.